Well, hello, everyone. Great day, everyone, and welcome to Spirit in Mind, where we discuss current events with faith and mental health perspectives. I'm Bishop Guy Robinson, and it is certainly an honor to be with you today and grateful for the presence of Dr. Shepard with us today as well. Good day, Dr. Shepard.
Hey, Bishop, how are you, sir?
Doing well, doing well. Listen, and we're grateful for another opportunity to share and let someone know it's time for Spirit in Mind. Dr. Shepard is going to give, of course, if you know somebody that's in the car, text them, give them a call, shoot them a text. Hopefully, they can pull over about to get in the car and let them know that we are live on Praise 106 because it's time for Spirit in Mind. And then the other ways to stay connected, Dr. Shepard is going to share with us now.
Hey, everyone, and we want to say happy Resurrection weekend and hope that you all had a wonderful Good Friday and that you are going to go out tomorrow for Easter services or Resurrection Sunday services. You can stay in contact with us. Let us know how you're getting prepared for Resurrection Sunday tomorrow. You can follow us on our YouTube channel and subscribe there. We'll love to see your face there as a new prescriber. I'm sorry, subscriber. I'm just used to prescribing, Bishop. Subscriber. And we want to make sure that you know how to reach out to Bishop C. Guy Robinson. His information is posted there for those who are watching online. We want to make sure that you can email him, call him. He is also the pastor of the Tabernacle Church, and we know that he has worship services tomorrow. You can go to their website. You can see the service times, and go follow him on Facebook and Instagram, CGR Ministries. He would love to hear from you. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook, also Dr. Jonathan Shepard. And you can see all the different resources that are available for you. If you're in need of direct care services, that means that you need someone who can assist you with mental health services. You're in need of mental health services, please let us know, and we'll make sure that you are in contact with someone, and that way you can get the help that you need. So again, thank you. Go to our Facebook page. You also have a Spirit in Mind Facebook page. We would love to again be in contact with you, hear what's going on with you. Bishop, those are the ways in which people can view us.
Absolutely, and we're excited about connection, and we're going to be extending our connection in some other ways, and looking forward to hearing from you and feedback from you. And if there are any show ideas you'd like for, or topics you'd like for us to discuss, we look forward to hearing from you and engaging in that way. But listen, exciting time. We greet you today on the Resurrection Weekend, Spirit in Mind, and so I'm just really looking forward to today's discussion. We've been talking about, of course, the current state and concerns, just kind of like in the zeitgeist of our culture, with persons dealing with quiet quitting, and then from there to feelings of apathy and feelings of anger and processing all of these emotions. Emotional regulation is just something I think always be trying to manage and work on, because time is filled with swift transition.
Right.
There's a lot of feelings and things that trigger experiences that trigger our feelings, and yet this is a very hopeful time in our unapologetically Christian approach to things of mental health. We're so excited about this time of year because it represents resilience, and it represents grit, and it represents fresh starts and new beginnings. It represents hope, and so we hope to be a source of hope and healing and help, or a form of that, and contribute to your process and journey of hope and healing and help. So we've been talking about anger and apathy, and Dr. Shepard's going to catch us up and then continue us from there.
Absolutely. So thank you all again for watching and listening to us in your cars. And thank you for the people who've been sharing with me, Bishop. People have been sharing that they've been listening to us on a weekly basis. So thank you. And you know where we've been talking about anxiety, which has lifted us into the area of safety. And yesterday, even as a part of my own worship service, I got a chance to lift up the promise that God gives us about being safe. And, we talked about that last week about how safety and certainty are not the same. That just rings out really within me, Bishop, how safety and certainty are not the same and how that drives anxiety. And, I hate to say, Bishop, that even this past week, I had to really rely on the subject matter that we've been on and just talking about the various things. And my own anxiety level had been increased. On Tuesday evening, one of the persons that I know and friends with their parents was shot down and killed on the campus of North Carolina A&T University in Greensboro, North Carolina. And Bishop, let me tell you what the real issue for me. I mean, of course, any murder never should happen, but this was senseless, Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
She was in a student area, if you want to say like a student union outside. It was a gathering of students, and someone decides to pull a gun out and starts firing into the air, and the bullet hit her and took her life. Innocent bystander. 18 years old, freshman at North Carolina A&T.
Wow.
Smart young lady. I followed her as I was a contributor to scholarships from my previous church in Chicago, and I watched her how she performed well academically. Her parents loved her, and her name is Deja Reeves. Bishop, you ask why? When things like this, I can feel the parents. Even though I may not see you all, and you may see me, but I can feel you out there. There's some parents out there you're concerned about when you send your children to school, when you send them away to college, when you send them even on a daily basis to the elementary, to the middle school, high school. We talked about Nashville last week about the Nashville Christian schools and how that woman came in and murdered those 6 people, 3 children, 3 employees, adult employees. And then the Tennessee legislative branch, if you would, had the audacity to remove 2 of their members because of gun protests. I tell you, Bishop, when you see stuff like that, it makes you wonder, Lord, where is it safe?
Yeah.
Where is it safe? And so I hear you out there. Someone's even struggling. Dr. Shepherd, you just gave these examples as to why I shouldn't go to worship service. Wrong. Do not utilize these examples as a reason to stay home. You're not in line with where my thinking is. I didn't have to be clear about that. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you get out because, as I lifted yesterday, you could be lying in your own bed comfortable, and yet a bullet strike you in your own home where you think is safe. And I'll just say this, Bishop, you were on target last week when you were talking about how the enemy has relabeled safe places as soft targets. Man, that thing has been, again, ringing in my ears. But that's where we were, Bishop. We're talking about safety, and that's where we're going to begin today.
Yes, absolutely. And that's because in terms of the spiritual aspects of it, safe places are usually places where a whole lot of faith is invested.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes a target of adversarial relabeling, if you will, reframing, because it's soft because it's a place where our faith is there. Schools and malls and those kinds of things are places that appeal to our more social and if you will, more civil nature.
Right.
And it's so very important that what we said last week be reiterated again, because we look for safety, and safety is great. But safety is not to be confused with certainty. And again, so many times we really, really want certainty, but life is built so much on statistical probability.
Mm-hmm.
From the time we get up and listen to the meteorologist report,
right?
And there's a strong possibility. This week was, even here in Baltimore, opening day was for the baseball team,
Wow.
the Orioles.
Orioles.
The Major League Baseball team Orioles was rescheduled, postponed based off of a forecast that didn't, at least in our environment, end up be to the extremity
Right.
as expected at the exact time
Right.
that was expected. And sometimes our meteorologists take a hard hit for that. But if you listen to them, they're really talking in statistical probabilities, 80% chance of this, that, and the other. And so, and that's because we do much more by statistical probability. And where there is a gap between statistical probability and certainty is where our faith has to fill in the gap.
Right.
And the scriptures are very clear. I argue that human beings, just as we are thinking beings, just as we are feeling beings, just as we are physical beings, we are also faith-oriented beings. We do it so naturally, it's almost like breathing, where we just have to trust, which is why Habakkuk said, and then Paul reiterated in his epistle, that the just shall live by faith. We live a lot by faith, so much so, just as we don't think about how many breaths we take in a day, so too do we not think of how many times we operate more in faith than in certainty. And so that's why it's important to hear you correctly and not hear your examples as excuses to, live in fear. And, because Jesus said that, and let me give the scriptural example before we move on of what you gave it. You can lock yourself in and do all that and say, I'm staying home. And then something, abnormal happens in a freak accident. And that wasn't to be negative, but it was to be the way the scripture said it. He that seeks to save his life will lose it.
Wow.
That the more your anxieties kick in and you begin to respond to anxious moments, the more we box ourselves in and ironically create the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
So the only thing is in the flip, he that gives his life will gain it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of is Jesus' way of saying live and trust the Lord.
Wow. Because anticipated fear will kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anticipated fear. We study how when people are preparing for a crash, there have been even studies where people were on a plane and the plane crash did not kill them. It was the fear.
Wow.
And how can you do that? You can do an autopsy and you can actually look and see where the heart stopped. And if the heart stopped before the actual impact, that meant that you died before the impact even occurred. Man, Bishop, that's something. That we died before the actual circumstance even happened, before the crash or the collision even happened. That anticipated fear is real. And so it'll stop you from living. It'll stop you from being able to get out. And I just think about how so many people have these phobias, various phobias. And phobias are real, but phobias are meant to be conquered. They're a disorder. They're causing you to be dysfunctional. Phobias are not something to be embraced, but there's something to be managed. There's something to be able to overcome. There's something that you can work through. And we want to be clear about that. I'm thinking even, Bishop, the chancellor of that school of North Carolina A&T, his name is Harold Martin, and the police chief, his name is Jermaine Cherry. They came on after this senseless killing and wanted to reassure the people that NC A&T was still one among the safest universities within the UNC system and across the nation. Now, again, you're talking to somebody where we experienced something that was not the case. But if you think about the thousands of people that attend there, again, we're looking at probabilities. And, we dare not look at that dear soul that I know, Deja Reeves, as just a lost soul or just a probability or a stat. But I understand their comments. And again, there's a balance, if you would, that you have to weigh out in your mind. And I tell you, Bishop, it really makes people struggle. I've watched people struggle in this COVID-19 pandemic era where people just don't know where to go. They just don't feel safe. And I want to make sure we're clear on stop is that safety is not something you can put your hands on. It's nothing that you can feel. It's not tangible. As you mentioned, is reassurance. It's a perception, if you would.
Hmm.
It really is a perception, and you can be safe. And I'm in a war zone. There could be gunfire all around me. I remember this. I really am concluding here. I remember when Freddie Gray riots broke out in 2015, and there was a group of students who was in our day program at the Johns Hopkins Hospital, and the driver was scared to take these children back home. And the children was like, "We're not scared. Like this is what we do on a daily basis. We hear this fighting and rocks and bottles being thrown and gunfire. And it's like toughen up and take us home. I mean, seriously, that's not what their exact words were, but that's that they felt safe even in the midst of the violence and riots.
Absolutely. That's a powerful. We're talking about the relativity of safety as a perception relative to environment.
Mhm.
And so there are places, of course, that help us to feel safe,
Yeah.
and yet sometimes even those places can be violated in cases like we've been talking about for the past couple of minutes. And that's one of the things that troubles us because we thought they were safe.
Yep.
And so that's a perception, and we should continue to operate, having done all we can do to maintain safety in an environment. That doesn't take us. The acceptance of faith, let me say that, is not the denial of personal responsibility.
Mm.
Those two can work hand in hand. Just saying, I'm going to trust God. Well, there are other things we can do. We can look at, even as discussions are going on now, and those things, we can look at safety controls. We can look at security controls. We can look at mental health concerns. We can look at all the things that people are talking about. We can look at policies and procedures and all of the things that are part of the discussion. We can bring them to the table and do our very best to execute them here from the very best minds, because that's our responsibility. So I'm not suggesting the abdication of responsible stewardship of our environment. We have a responsibility to do that. It is just accepting that having done all we can do, there still is a gap between probability and certainty.
Right.
And we still have to have some element of faith. And if we lose our faith, we get in a place of apathy, which goes to our one of the things we've been talking about, or despair,
Wow.
where hope is gone. That's what despair is, the absence of hope. And so we lead into those places of apathy and despair. We the, that's the alternative, or becoming cynical in our view of life. But instead, faith is what we use to fill in the gaps, to say, I've done everything we can do to take every possible precaution to be safe. There it is again. And yet, ultimately, my trust is in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the faith piece where we have to have it. We have to, I don't know where we'd be without faith as human beings.
Absolutely. And Bishop, I know as we're winding down here, in my daily devotion this morning, I was brought to Psalm 16, and in it talks about, keep me safe, O God, for I have come to you for refuge. And then verse 9 goes down and talks about how my body rests in safety. Isn't it amazing how your physical body will be able to respond to the emotional peace, if you would, that is occurring inside of you, even when outside your external situations are in shambles.
Mm-hmm.
That's just awesome how you're able to do that. And then keep me safe. I come to you for refuge, and now we can't necessarily see God, can't put our hands on him, but we can call his name.
Mm-hmm.
And the scripture also says in Proverbs, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. So I was just thinking about that. From the mental aspect, how we cannot forget that faith is necessary. But it's interesting how we can be safe and feel that security when we can't necessarily touch it. I do have an acronym. You know, I love acronyms, Bishop, for SAFE. It's security against fear elicited.
Mm-hmm.
Security against fear elicited. And, it's just awesome how, connected to what's happening here. And then I'm sure, Bishop, you take it over. How Jesus's physical body was resting safely in the tomb while his spirit man, if you would, was down in hell conquering over the enemy. That's awesome. You think about how they sealed it and made sure that his body was safe because they thought the people were going to come and steal him.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make sure that no one came and just, because they had heard the prophecies that he would get back up, and they wanted to make sure that was not going to happen. But it's something that while your physical body could be at rest, there's a couple points up in there. Your physical body could be at rest, but you are somewhere else fighting for victory and getting it at the same time.
That's key, Dr. Shepherd, because there are various forms of safety.
Mm-hmm.
So safety has context. Again, my body can be safe, but my mind, my thoughts, and my will and emotions be in a very troublesome place. That's the Bible even speaks of that in Luke 21, which corresponds with you talking about people whose hearts gave out before impact.
Yeah.
Luke 21 talks about the hearts of men failing them because of fear.
Wow.
That's the wisdom of the ancients is amazing.
Wow.
Luke 21 says the hearts of men will fail them because of fear when the shaking of the earth happens. It's a bit of an eschatological passage, but it's making the point that anxieties, because when the Bible speaks about heart, it's really speaking about our inner being. Mm-hmm. And so we can look the part and look physically safe and be in shambles internally, if you will. And the flip is true. We're talking about the contextualization of safety. Then the flip is true. We can be in a storm where our bodies are troubled, but the safety within is secure. Paul speaks of that when he says, though the outward man perishes, the inner man is being renewed, revived day by day. I'm getting stronger and feeling safer and more secure in my identity, even as I'm dealing with some external things that are undesirable in my physical condition, if you will. And so, and we know this because even the scriptures make distinctions sometimes. It says somebody had an infirmity, and then it speaks of the spirit of infirmity, which is the, if you will, the ongoing effects that even after. I was reading some research that said that sometimes after a person, and this is rare, but sometimes after a person has a serious physical condition, the anxiety of that can continue for up to a year or more.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
So that's I was just trying to say safety has different contexts in our last 2 minutes. Maybe we need to pick up on that.
Yeah.
Dr. Shepherd, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right, because when you go through an experience, it's a traumatic experience. When people get ill, when they're down, I was just discussing with someone who I know who had some physical challenges, had a stroke. And when you have those strokes or even other physical conditions, it makes you more at risk of depression, of having mental health disorders, because the things you were able to do before, you can't do them no longer. And then you don't feel safe.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it ties right in, because your faculties are no longer as strong. Your faculties are not functioning like you want them, and you feel vulnerable. I mean, that's really how it is. You feel vulnerable. But I'm thankful that we've had this discussion today. We want you to feel safe. Bishop, I'm going to leave with this. Again, in my study, it was mentioning how God with us, Emmanuel, became God for us,
right,
by giving up his life to rescue so that we could know him personally. So that's what I want to encourage you all with, that knowing that God became for us, that you can be safe. You can be safe. And as it says in the song, the safest place in the whole wide world is in the will of the Lord. And so whether it be emotionally or mentally, physically, intellectually, financially, or economically, we know we want you to be safe.
And that's our declaration. And have a wonderful, blessed, and safe, encouraging, hopeful, and empowering remainder of this resurrection weekend. If ever there were a time to feel helpful and hopeful, it would be now. And listen, ask someone to listen in and join us next time by the grace of God on Spirit in Mind.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spirit in Mind. And we're also on Instagram at Spirit in Mind Live.
I think we were tuned into two different emails. I only email I had from Minister Cat with the link was from Thursday, this past Thursday, the 6th.
Oh,
And that was the one, and they kept saying the host is not on yet.
it must. See, I think